So in this lecture, we're going to be talking about creativity enhancing, being more creative. In a world where there's a lot of distractions around of us, where we focus a lot on the screens and we don't just sit down and think, creativity becomes limited. The right hemisphere of the brain starts working less. It becomes less effective because you're not actually using it as much. Now, there's a lot of different ways for you to boost your creativity. There were also a lot of books written on this subject. One of my favorite books is The Artist's Way, where the author basically explains how artists become more creative and how you can leverage these techniques for you to be able to become more creative. And in this lecture, we're going to be covering some basic principles for you to be able to harness this creativity, enhance it, and just become more creative. So first, mind mapping. It makes you more productive. Mind mapping increases our creativity by creating a creative flow of ideas. When you draw your mind map and you associate colors with ideas, and then you add images or patterns or certain highlights that would link a certain idea and associates it with a certain image or color or text or shape. What you're doing there is you are working the right side of your hemisphere. You're working the right side of your brain, which is responsible for creativity, basically. The right hemisphere is the side that recognizes patterns, colors, and images. It doesn't really focus on temporal tasks that you have. It focuses on the spatial ones, what you see, what you perceive. In addition to images, it's also responsible for music, how you perceive music. And as we said, colors and pictures, understanding context and understanding languages and communications, faces, places, and objects. And eventually, this is what gives you creativity. Because what you do, what you can build in your mind, what you can think of, and what you can be creative in are all the different things that you've seen in your life. You can't think about a color that you've never seen before. You can't just out of the blue think about a color that is not existent. But you can think about a lot of colors that you've seen in your life, and you can get creative by mixing colors together. However, the only things that are stuck in your mind are the things that you perceived, the things that are stuck in your right hemisphere, the thing that, whether it's patterns, faces, places, and objects. If you want to think about a face, if I say for 1 second, close your eyes and think about a face that you've never seen before, most probably you're not aware of this, but the face that you're thinking of is a face that you've either seen, but you're not conscious of it anymore, or it's a combination between different faces that you saw before, because you cannot just create a face if you haven't had it stored in your mind before. So that being said, when you use mind mapping a lot, what you're doing is you are associating your thoughts with patterns, with colors, with shapes, with images, with highlights. And what's that doing is it's working the right hemisphere of your brain, thus increasing your creativity. If at any point you find that you're using mind mapping and you're becoming less creative, you are using mind mapping in the wrong way. And you need to take a step back and ask yourself, reassess if you are doing the right thing when it comes to mind mapping. And if not, you need to review what you're doing and make sure that you're following mind mapping properly. And of course, there are other ways for you to be able to become more creative, not just through mind mapping. So first thing is become an explainer. Explain, explain, and explain. The more you explain, the more questions you'll be asked, and the more in-depth questioning will take place. When you have concepts and you start explaining these concepts to people, whenever there's something that they don't understand, they're going to ask you a question, and you're going to have to explain even more and even more. And what's happening there is that sometimes you are figuring out the questions without even knowing that you know the answer. Why? Is because your mind is processing the information while you're explaining it, and you are getting results without you even being aware of getting these results. And the more you explain, the more you'll be able to see the different corners and different branches of each and every idea, which eventually helps you also with mind mapping. When you're able to explain and go in depth through each and every subject, that means you're able to dissect this subject into small bits and explain each and every one of them. This is perfect for your creativity and for your mind mapping. Second is always ask new questions. don't just talk, but listen. One of the biggest obstacles today is that people don't want to ask new questions. Nobody likes change, and it's very hard for some people to adapt to change. Just think about the last time you had a situation where your routine changed, for example, or you were asked to do something that you've never done before. Most of us, because of course of questions related to the comfort zone, we don't like to get into new experiences, and that's what we're gonna get to when we talk about practice openness. But asking new questions, meaning, even if you want to become an explainer, which is good for your creativity. You'll be able to, when you explain more, as we said, you'll be able to get more in depth into each and every subject, but you also need to listen and not just talk and explain. You need to always ask new questions because there are a lot of things that you don't know. And once you know these things, as we said, the way that creativity works is that it links the stuff inside your mind, it links them together to build something creative. Well, if you're just talking and building upon the information that you know without acquiring any new information through asking questions, your creativity will not grow. But when you're always asking new questions, discovering new things and getting new connections in your mind, your creativity will start increasing, and therefore you'll be more creative. And this will help you with mind mapping as well, and it will help you with creativity in general. Asking more questions will give you more knowledge, thus will give you more creativity. That's it. Third is a practice openness. As I said before, we are so limited in our comfort zone that it's very rarely do we practice openness. We're not open to new experiences. When there's a new situation, a new change in our lives, we feel uncomfortable because it's something that we're not used to, and this is normal. I'm not saying that having this kind of behavior is something that is not normal. In the contrary, if you have this character that you don't care, you're always open to trying new things, this is amazing. You are beyond normal. But for the normal and average people, getting out of the comfort zone can be something really challenging. That's why you need to practice it. You need to practice openness. Be open to new ideas and be open to new experiences, because it's not just questions that will give you new ideas and new concepts, but it's new experiences. Being open to new ideas and branching out these ideas, cutting these ideas down, dissecting this idea into different ideas, then asking questions about these ideas, explaining these ideas, and new experiences as well. Going through new experiences will teach you more things, and the more you learn, eventually, the more ideas you'll have, the more creative you'll be, the more experiences you have, the more stuff you experience, the more stuff you'll be able to perceive, the more creative you'll get. And lastly, practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. You can't expect yourself to be creative by trying one new experience and explaining a subject for a friend. This is not how it works. The right hemisphere of the brain is going to be developed in a certain amount of time. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen instantly in 2-3 days. Enhancing your creativity needs to be linked to a SMART goal. You need to know that what is your goal? Your goal is to become more creative, for you to be able, for example, to have better business ideas. And you need to see the time frame and all the different stuff related to SMART goals, being specific, being measurable, being timely, being realistic, and being attainable, right? And once you do, you need to keep practicing these things. You need to keep practicing becoming an explainer. You need to keep practicing mind mapping. You need to keep practicing asking new questions and learning new stuff. Practice openness and getting new ideas and new experiences. And once you do, naturally, your creativity will increase. There's a lot of specific things that, for example, that other people talk about, such as, for example, sitting down and meditating, thinking about new ideas. There's a lot of things in the book, The Artist's Way, for example, going to the store and buying a piece of paper and some glitter, and so just letting your imagination and creativity flow and drawing stuff on paper. But I'm talking right now in terms of on a daily basis. If you don't want to do these extra things that also boost creativity, what can you do on a daily basis to increase your creativity? Well, of course, first, using mind mapping properly, be able to mind map your ideas and your thoughts and your tasks and your goals. try to explain stuff more and go more in depth into explanations, ask new questions, practice openness, and keep practicing all the previous things that I said over and over and over again for you to become more creative bit by bit.